Here we are at Charlotte's house. Those are the donkeys that live behind her house. And this is a beautiful English garden. Cherry trees, beans, beautiful veggies, great apple tree. Nice kitty! And flowers. Let's walk down here. Here we are with Charlotte in her beautiful English garden. And she's just going to give us a brief little synopsis of the history of the dance in England.
Okay. If we start with the war in Beirut, so that is kind of like the late 70s, very early 80s. Also coincided with the big oil crisis as well. The oil went up through the roof. And what happened was that whereas Beirut had been kind of like the party capital for the Arabs, obviously it was closed because of the war, and they decamped here to London. And these, particularly the Gulf Arabs, had an enormous amount of money. And there were a lot of Arab nightclubs that got set up at that time. One of them was run by Mona Said. There was a massive one called the Empress that I used to go to. It was absolutely enormous. It was underground, underneath Grosvenor Square, which is this beautiful big square in Mayfair. Absolutely fabulous. You'd go downstairs, massive underground, almost like an enormous cellar, with long, long tables, amazing singers, amazing dancers, the dancers particularly from Lebanon and Syria and places like that. And
not many locals at that time.
No locals, no English dancers, no, and not really any Cairo dancers. It was mainly, as I say, sort of Lebanon and Syrian places. But that was where Hossam started to play. Oh. So Hossam will tell you about that time as well. And Mona Said had people like Nagwa Fouad come and dance, and Nelly and Hanan, you know, the ones that she used to dance with, you know, in those videos you see the three of them particularly dancing together. And so they taught Hossam a lot about dance. That's why he is so passionate about the dance and actually teaches a lot about dance as well, because of what they taught him. And there's a generation of dancers, including me, I'm in my early 50s, so people like Asmahan, Anne White, Joe Wise, who were introduced for one reason or another to those nightclubs, you know, Arab boyfriends typically, you know, that's the kind of thing that does, you know, there's usually a man involved, and just got captivated by it. And I was a dancer at the time. I was a trained dancer, you know, I'd just finished my dance degree, so ballet and Western dances, and contemporary dance. And I just kind of fell in love with it and looked for classes, but there were no dance classes, no belly dance classes. So all I used to do was just kind of like watch the dancers and just try and reproduce it in these clubs. Yeah. Some of the other girls, I think that Joe actually got to talk to some of the girls and got her to teach her some moves, and I think actually ended up dancing sort of like, you know, kind of like on the back slots in those clubs. I think she did, and I'm not sure about Asmahan. I think Asmahan may have done that. I'm not sure, but certainly So around that time, Soroya Hilal, who was, I think, Yemeni, I think I'm right in saying, Soroya Hilal isn't her real name, started to teach, I think probably about 1983, something like that. By that time I was away, I was off in Bahrain, and so I didn't pick up on her classes, but that was when things started here. And she taught through the local education institutes. She had, like community level or like universities, or no? We have a kind of an adult education program, community level. Then, and she taught a dance that was a very ballady based dance, very much the dance of the ordinary people, if you like, rather than cabaret. Classic. More folk dance then? More folk dance, definitely more folky.
But videos I've seen of her seem very ballet.
I know. I know, it's very, very strange.
And,
what she taught was
disconnected from the audience.
I know. Actually, and very contemporary sort of as well, contemporary ballet.
And modest.
Modest to the extreme. I mean, in fact, Soroya dances with more freedom than she allowed, from my understanding, than what she allowed her students to do.
Ah.
So when I came back to teaching, which is in about 2003, somebody phoned me up and asked if they could come to my belly dancing classes, and they said, "Do you do Hilal?" And I didn't know what she was talking about. And she explained that it was a style of dance, and that was the real dance. They won't call it belly dance.
And the term Rakshaki.
Rakshaki, that's it. They call it.
She kind of took that term.
She took that term. So there's a confusion in this country. Rakshaki is the Soroya camp, if you like. Whereas in the rest of the world, of course, Rakshaki means Oriental. It definitely doesn't mean Oriental. I mean, we now, because really we've come a long way away from the whole Rakshaki, Soroya Hilal movement. And the
two camps.
Yeah, the belly dance, cabaret and tribal world has grown massively. And most young dancers now will never have heard of Soroya Hilal.
Huh.
And she's actually broken away from her old school as well.
Now, why?
Okay. I'll rewind back.
Okay.
Because she did this style of dance. Things like certainly the girl who came to my class said we're not allowed to lift our arms up above our waists.
Huh.
Absolutely have to be covered, and hair covered as well. So
wow.
What they would wear is leotard, long circle skirt, sort of like a satiny circle skirt. Leotard here and a headscarf tied back, and that's the Rakshaki
look
uniform. Very much a uniform, actually. You can see a Rakshaki dancer. Not that you see them very often, but
yeah, I noticed there is a school in like Switzerland or something.
Yeah, it's quite a lot in. I think in Belgium as well. It's quite big, and Germany, I think, as well.
So when did tribal hit England?
Very recently.
Very
recently. The last 3 or 4 years.
And
that was really when people started to see Rachel Bryce. So not very much. Yeah, I suppose there is a little bit of ATS. But going back to Soroya, she really, she was the only game in town. That was all that was taught was Soroya's method, which became increasingly prescriptive. And people like Yasmina was actually trained by Soroya Hilal.
Oh.
Joe was trained by Soroya Hilal. Most of that generation were trained by her. The only reason that I didn't was because I came out of it, and so I never got involved in it. So, I feel quite lucky in a way that I didn't, because there were a lot of real issues that the girls who followed Soroya had, because Soroya attained a real guru status.
yes.
And like many gurus, you
get a little controlling.
Very controlling. And, there were kind of directives that, thou shalt not dance in a restaurant.
Great.
And Yasmina fell out because she wanted to dance in a restaurant, and that was really considered disgusting. You're showing your breasts in public kind of thing, dancing for men and, doing that cabaret stuff, and it's just not acceptable. And my understanding, I may be wrong, I wasn't actually around the time, but my understanding was if you went and danced in a restaurant, then you don't come back to class.
Wow.
Big one who kind of broke away and actually started to teach herself. She went to Egypt and suddenly thought, hang on a minute, all the stuff I've been told, it's not like that at all.
Right.
And then, of course, we started to get videos.
Yes.
And you start to see, hang on a minute.
And the internet.
Yeah, well, that was pre-internet. But even, when it was videos. Because, of course, when I started dancing, there were no videos. We didn't even have CDs. It was just, I found a George Abdo cassette.
Right.
I was just overwhelmed by that. But yeah, so as the dancers started to see videos of American dancers, for example, what you were doing in America, And then when I came back into it, I very quickly decided that I wanted to bring visiting teachers. So I was particularly interested in bringing Americans over, so people like...
And you have like 1,000 students now at your school, you said? That's great.
Yes.
And all these sub-teachers. Oh, and what happened where Soroya, is that how you say it, broke off from her own school?
Yes, I don't quite know exactly what happened. They created something called the Rakshaki Society. No, I think it was called the Hilal School. That was it. It was called the Hilal School. And then she started to... She actually rejected Rakshaki and decided that she wanted to just be doing experimental contemporary dance.
Because she artistically moved on herself.
I think so.
I see.
Kind of a breakup, and she said, "You're not allowed to use my name anymore," and so they rechristened themselves the Rakshaki Society.
I see.
And I think on her website at one point, it would have been about 2005, I remember seeing on her website that she was nothing to do with Rakshaki and didn't want to have anything to do with the Rakshaki Society.
Now, there are, Joe has a huge school, you have a huge school, and the dance is very popular here.
The dance is very popular, very popular.
And Bellydance Superstars is pretty well received.
Yes, yes it is. Yes, it is. And we have they have a festival in the north of England.
Have you been to that one?
No, I haven't.
How about the internet? Is the internet pretty big in the Bellydance community?
Yeah. I mean, that's a big thing that people watch dancers on YouTube. That's a big thing.
And you seem to be pretty familiar with the articles on Gilded Serpent. So
yeah, very much so. I think it's great.
All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.